You're listening to Transformation at Work, your one-stop guide to Salesforce success. And this is Salesforce Tech Talks, comprehensive deep dives into the art of solutioning and implementation for Salesforce. Our expert squad of developers, solution architects, and industry veterans are breaking open the black box and digging into the possibilities of solution design and architecture. The show is brought to you by Jarrett, a summit-level Salesforce consulting and implementation partner and solutions provider, and I am Jeff Stormer, your host as always. Today we're talking about the nonprofit industry, and if there's one thing that's true of nearly every team you look at in that sector, it's that they are scrappy, largely because they have to be. I mean, think about it. Orgs that are built to make an impact and advance causes that matter usually are funneling as much money as possible back into that cause because every dollar makes a difference. And that's commendable, but as any nonprofit employee can tell you, that focus on impact tends to come with the result of tighter budgets and razor-thin margins. You have to be able to put together solutions with bubblegum and duct tape because often that's all you have. Now compare that to the for-profit world, right? People are tripping over themselves to deliver industry-tailored services and solutions because, well, there's money to be made. Nonprofits are underdogs, relying on technology that's, let's be honest, a little outdated, if inexpensive, while other industries are rolling out flashy new solutions every other year. And so the question becomes, if I am in a nonprofit, what if I do want that flashy luxury experience? What if I want access to those high-end, expensive, best-in-class tools developed for other industries, but to also have those tools contextualized for nonprofit use cases? That's what we're talking about here today. In this episode, we're taking a deep dive into the global debut of Salesforce Nonprofit Cloud, a brand new solution built on the Salesforce core designed to enable nonprofit organizations to an extent that we've frankly never seen before. Our nonprofit industry experts are breaking down what's gone into the launch, a few of the key features that Nonprofit Cloud offers organizations, and how they can really meaningfully take advantage of this technology. Now, there's a lot of new to unpack with Nonprofit Cloud, but to really understand what the solution offers and where it's coming from, we need to really understand its predecessor, Nonprofit Success Pack, or NPSP. Which means we're taking a field trip back to 2009. Marley and Me is in theaters, Viva La Vida is on the radio, and in the nonprofit space, organizations are recognizing the value add of having a customer relationship management, a CRM solution like Salesforce, to help them better identify, engage, and convert their donors. The problem is that industry-agnostic solutions like Sales Cloud and Service Cloud really aren't tailored for nonprofit needs. And so, a scrappy group of mission-driven Salesforce aficionados launched Salesforce.org and start customizing managed packages for nonprofit customers. Hence, the Nonprofit Success Pack.
So if you think about the NPSP package, it came out in 2009. So that's 15 years ago that this package was created. In 2009, CRM wasn't like a thing that every business even knew about, right? CRM was starting to take off. CRM for nonprofits was something that was a brand new concept as well. And so when you think of the context that NPSP was built, it was a lot of people trying to say, what might be the best way for nonprofits to get into the CRM world, right?
That's Dr. James Gardner-Gregory, Jarrett's Senior Director of Industry Solutions for Nonprofit. James has been in the ecosystem for over 5 years and has worked with nonprofits for over 15 as both a customer and a consultant. And James has seen firsthand really the full life cycle of NPSP as a product, from how it served the needs of organizations in 2009 when it launched, and how it has continued to serve or struggled to serve the changing needs of organizations since then. For another firsthand perspective, here's Regine Benchetry, Jarrett's Director of Nonprofit Growth and Marketing, who has spent the majority of her 18-plus year career in the nonprofit sector doing fundraising for various organizations and sectors.
I remember the days of sitting in, my cubicle when we actually had to go into offices, raising those funds. And it really was a bit of a back and forth, right? Programs needs money. My job is business development. Go get that money, hand over the money, help make it rain, make those programs happen. And then, at the end of the day, you're scrambling, 364 days later after the funds have come in. And then you're going, you're running to your programs team going, okay, now we have to actually gather the information and showcase and demonstrate what it is that we did with that. Let's go collect all the Excel spreadsheets. Let's go collect all that information. And it's, a little bit of the sky is falling.
Now, as James and Regine both alluded to, NPSP really served the needs of organizations when it launched in 2009. But the problem that has emerged over the years is that increasingly, nonprofits, their employees, and their constituents are all really looking for a data-driven and personalized experience. And, well, to put it bluntly, for organizations on NPSP, that can get expensive.
Like, I have to think one of the biggest challenges that nonprofits have today is definitely the operational overhead. Let's say, for example, if you're a nonprofit and you were on NPSP and you wanted a specific type of personalized service, you often had to customize that, right? So if there was a capability that you wanted, it would involve customization, right? Which basically means development costs.
That's Richard Smythe, Senior Director of Consulting Services at Jarrett, who has spent almost 20 years in IT leadership positions at various nonprofits and has seen firsthand really the full transformation process for many organizations.
There's a lot of manual tasks, or there's a lot of, if you think about the overarching way to make nonprofits more competitive, especially in the fundraising space, is how do we provide that personalized experience to our donors and to our constituents overall? And what they're experiencing right now, they're heavily bogged down with manual tasks, right? Or data is siloed. We have a lot of technical debt.
Ultimately, despite the best intentions and efforts of its developers, NPSP's data model, while it served some basic needs, was never quite perfect for what nonprofits were looking for. Here's how James puts it.
15 years later, technology has evolved vastly, and there's a lot of lessons learned throughout all the customers that have leveraged Salesforce and NPSP. So Salesforce really listened to customers in the nonprofit space, both small all the way to the enterprise, and really heard what their pain points were with this product. And then they said, okay, we're going to bring you all these features that you need for managing CRM for nonprofits, but we're going to optimize things like how we deal with automation. And we're going to optimize, in particular, our data model.
Yeah, I think the benefit to piggyback off of what James is saying, the benefit is being able to leverage a lot of the capabilities or the solutions that are cross industry, right? So taking things from the finance industry, taking things from marketing, and bringing them all together and allowing nonprofits to benefit from those solutions that have been in those sort of industries for a long time, and they're benefiting from that. Nonprofits will also be able to do that as well.
Which brings us to 2019, when Salesforce acquires Salesforce.org and starts thinking about new ways to serve nonprofit customers directly with a product that's really built for them from the ground up. The end result of that is, the new Nonprofit Cloud, which offers an expanded library of industry features, as well as the ability to bring in capabilities from other core products such as Sales Cloud, Service Cloud, Health Cloud, Loyalty Cloud, etc., and an ongoing thrice annual update schedule as opposed to a one-off managed product as it was before. For more on that transformation, here's James.
Regardless of what industry you're in, whether it's nonprofit, manufacturing, education, every single person and every single customer, constituent, donor, they're all looking for a personalized customer experience. And Salesforce Industries, the platform that nonprofit is built on top of, is designed to provide personalized customer experiences. So whether or not something was built for manufacturing, that product is designed, the way it's designed is to provide those personalized experiences. And that's what Nonprofit Cloud gets by being on this cloud, is instant access to features and capabilities that are designed to let you connect with a customer in a way that you currently were not able to connect with on the previous package.
James, I think one of the things I think of too is, the sort of maintenance, if we go back to kind of the NPSP model, a lot of the additional capabilities that you needed to run your nonprofit, it required additional solutions on top of NPSP as well, isn't it? Right. So if you think of things like accounting subledger, for example, that was an additional paid solution that you had to add. And now that is all part of the MPC SKU. So if you think about all of the different costs, right, it's only when you start to think as a nonprofit of okay, what is the licensing cost for Nonprofit Cloud? Don't just see MPSP costs to Nonprofit Cloud. Think about all of the additional sort of licenses that you've had to add on to NPSP to get the capabilities that you need for your organization. Factor those in when you're looking, because it's not an apples to apples situation.
Now, you may be asking yourself, Jeff, this is a wonderful journey that we've embarked on, but what does the thing actually do? So let's get into it. And we'll start with a really foundational piece of a modern core Salesforce product that really underpins how developers and employees interact with Salesforce on the whole, and that is OmniStudio. Here's James with a breakdown.
I would say the big one that you'll hear a lot of people talk about is OmniStudio. So OmniStudio is a point-and-click tool that lets you create highly customized wizards for your internal users and your customers or constituents, donors to interact with on an experience site. So previously, if you wanted to create like a style-perfect interaction window and wizard for anyone, you had to leverage custom code. So if you wanted something to look really modern and sleek, you had to use custom code, which is heavy development cost. OmniStudio will allow you to essentially do this exact same thing with point and click, so cheaper to build and cheaper to maintain going forward.
Just to extend that too, with respect to OmniStudio, there's also something called Flex Card, right? And so think of that as like a digital cue card, essentially, right? So that provides a summary to folks within nonprofit organizations of their constituent information right in front of them, right? And again, to James' point, it's visually appealing, right? And so it gives a snapshot and you can customize that as need be. So it gives you a snapshot of, could be their giving history, could be upcoming events that they're attending, their total giving to date, whatever it may be. And it will help to enhance that donor engagement again and that stewardship and being able to retain those donors. And I'm also just thinking in terms of some of the nonprofits who have call centers, right? In terms of you may have someone calling in to either whether it's donate or they need a pick up some clothes from their house because there's organizations that do that, whatever it may be. They're able to have that information right at their fingertips to be able to personalize that conversation rather than just being, a standard, conversation that you would have when you call in.
Now, speaking of that personalization, Salesforce Nonprofit Cloud also allows teams to bring in features from other industry clouds to really create that personalized experience that is laser focused on their specific industry and needs. For an example of that, here's James.
One of the things I love about Salesforce Industries, and this is a feature that was created for Financial Service Cloud, is interest tags. So interest tags is a way that you could essentially tag a contact, a donor, a constituent in your system with their interests. So let's say you're doing some high touch donor relationships and you have a conversation and you find out that the donor likes water polo. You can create a interest tag related to them called water polo. Let's say you want to see how many people that we kind of work for donations like water polo. You can create a report that looks at all the people that have interest in water polo. You see that, we have like 20 people who are interested in water polo in the DC area. Let's host an event, a water polo event in that area, right? That's something that it's a small feature, just tagging these little interests, but you can create such a personalized touch by doing so.
Of course, those personalization features are great, but they're really only half the battle because you have to be able to deliver that personalized experience at scale if you really want to make an impact. And for a lot of organizations, that's where the challenge is. This is where automation features such as actionable lists come in that allow organizations to scale those personalization efforts without a lot of effort on the behalf of individual employees.
One of the features that a lot of nonprofits can take advantage of that comes from the other industries is actionable lists. Essentially, that's just the ability to create a template of tasks and actions you need to use on, for instance, on engaging a particular donor or constituent. So instead of having to manually create a bunch of tasks or create automations in the background that automatically create tasks, you can create templates for a particular type of play, assign that template to a constituent, and then have your tasks automatically created so that you're never missing any of those touch points that you need to have with any of the people that you're, for instance, looking for donations from.
And then, once those interactions are had and those donations are collected, we get to another area where Salesforce and the new Nonprofit Cloud really excel, which is giving teams the ability to show donors, investors, and supporters exactly where their money went. Here's Richard with a breakdown for how that looks in practice.
having worked in nonprofit for many years, I think one of the biggest challenges that we were always faced with was being able to demonstrate ROI to our donors. So you might have a major corporation or a major gift from, an individual. And one of the things they always would say is, hey, how did my investment do? What's the ROI on that investment? So, for example, one of the great, amazing things that outcomes management is going to be able to provide you the opportunity on is be able to showcase, hey, like your investment, like this is how we use those dollars and these are the outcomes, right? So this is this program or this service that we provided to a certain set of constituents. Like this is the value that your investment has created. And I think that's super powerful. That has always been probably one of the biggest challenges that nonprofits are faced with, right? Because a lot of that work was typically manual. It was based on spreadsheets. It was tweaked and tailored to specific individuals. And so a lot of it was done outside of platform. And I think that, for me, outcomes management is going to be a huge game changer for nonprofits.
So, we've talked a lot about what Nonprofit Cloud is and what it brings to the table from a feature perspective. But there's still one big question lingering in the air. Because after all, a lot of nonprofit organizations are currently using NPSP, so a lot of team leaders are likely asking, hey, do I need to migrate to the new Nonprofit Cloud, and what's that process going to look like for me? Let's throw it over to Richard to talk through a few of the key considerations teams leaders need to have in mind as they start to think about these very big questions.
I always start with take the technology to the side to begin with, right? And start with what are the critical business outcomes that you're trying to solve for, right? So what are your major pain points? What is your organizational strategic plan? What are the key priorities of that plan? And then based on those key milestones and the things you're trying to solve for, then figure out what is the technology that is in place and available to you and use that as a lever to help you accomplish those goals. So I always would recommend starting with the critical business outcomes that you're trying to solve for.
When I look at whether or not you should migrate from NPSP to Nonprofit Cloud, one of the questions you need to ask yourself is, do you have budget to do this, or can you get budget to do this? It's not going to necessarily be a very small project if you're doing a lot of things in Salesforce. Potentially, though, if you haven't customized Salesforce a lot, you're using a lot of out-of-the-box features, you might not need a very large budget to migrate to Nonprofit Cloud. So that would be the first thing. If you currently don't have budget, but you also, from what Richard's perspective is, you don't really have any new objectives you want to accomplish with CRM or any other aspects that you want to kind of optimize your org on, you might be pretty good to sit on NPSP for now and wait out until you have a need to migrate. But if you do have budget, the things I would consider is, one, do you currently have a planned major project on NPSP? If you do have a major planned project on NPSP, likely that is going to be purely a technical debt project, right? One day you're going to have to migrate and you're going to want to migrate to Nonprofit Cloud because of all the features they are adding and the advancements that they're going to be making on that platform. So any project you're doing going forward is most likely going to be technical debt that will have to be remediated at a later point. So your return on investment for those projects is going to be diminished over a long scale period. So if you do have one of these projects, my recommendation would be to evaluate what it would take to migrate to Nonprofit Cloud today and make that future project a part of that migration.
And of course, for organizations working through this process, one of the best steps to take is to work with a qualified technology partner who can help you work through some of these big questions around adoption and migration. For more on that, let's throw it to Richard.
So I think there's two ways in which Sharon can help organizations. I think number one is if you need any help in figuring out when is the right time, and when is the right time to move to Nonprofit Cloud, we can help you with a strategic engagement that would identify what are your critical business outcomes, when are you trying to solve them, and then how can Nonprofit Cloud help you to accomplish those goals. And what we would do is look at the roadmap, like the release map for Nonprofit Cloud, and how those capabilities that are either in Nonprofit Cloud today or are due to be released as part of the roadmap, how do those line up against your critical business outcomes? So I think helping you put together a roadmap to get you to Nonprofit Cloud based on your critical business priorities, that is something that we can certainly help with. In addition to that as well is org optimization, I think is so critical. So whether or not you have a roadmap, you've got a clear path, always making sure that you do a health check on a regular basis to help you, to James's point, to minimize your technical debt and to also actually help you be very well positioned when you are ready to move to nonprofit cloud. The organizational health check is really important to that. Number one is you may not have the budget to move to nonprofit cloud today, but you're still going to need to be able to optimize your org to make sure you can provide an efficient solution that's going to help your constituents and help your end users within your organization operate efficiently and effectively right for the time being until you move over to nonprofit cloud. So I think those are the two main areas that we can really support you on as it relates to sort of your journey towards nonprofit cloud one day.
I think also to understand, like Jaren, we have multi-cloud experience, right? And we also have experience of other sectors to lean on internally, right? So we can pull and leverage from best practices in other areas where needed. And we also, just in terms of our nonprofit specific team, comes from Salesforce, right? They understand, we have also folks who come from the nonprofit industry. But in addition to that, we actually do have some resources who were the very first on the testing ground in terms of the migration from NPSP to nonprofit cloud, right? So understand some of those nuances, especially going from household to individual accounts, which requires a set of skills.
Yeah, I think to add on that, the key thing, I think where Jaren really is, we're very well positioned, is that we like to meet you where you're at. So as a nonprofit, what we're not going to do is say, hey, you have to move to nonprofit cloud like today, right? What we would look at is all of the different things and what's happening within your organization, like where you are from a budget perspective, what your roadmap looks like, what are the things that you can absorb, and then help you figure out a path to nonprofit cloud one day when it makes sense for you to do so. Right. And so I feel like that's one of the key things that we can offer is like just being able to sort of guide you through that and do it in such a way that is palatable for you, right? And something that you feel is realistic.
Yeah, I think in the end, it's take a deep breath. Like there's a lot of information, especially just now, that has been thrown at you, but that these are all positive changes.
Regardless of size or sector, at a nonprofit institution, every dollar and every ounce of employee effort matters, because they almost universally translate to advancing worthy causes and making the world a better place. So while it is an understandable impulse to stick with the technology that's in place, even if it's a little out of date and it's not quite serving the needs of the mission as well as you'd hope, for nonprofits really looking to supercharge their experience, deliver greater personalization, and truly empower their employees to make a difference, looking at a new set of tools might be worth considering, because when those employees have everything they need to do their jobs as effectively as possible, they're really in a position to change the world. This has been Transformation at Work. Thank you so much for listening, and thank you to Regine, Richard, and James for a wonderful conversation. Transformation at Work is, as always, produced by Jaren in collaboration with Salesforce. I am Jeff Stormer, your host and producer. If you enjoyed the show, consider leaving us a 5-star review on iTunes or Spotify, or head to Jarent.com to sign up for email updates when we release new episodes. Until next time, thank you again for listening, and we hope to see you again soon.